Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. So, we're coming back to Rescue-ACE, I think for the first time since we did our initial deck profile for it, but of course, you all know me by this point. If you can do any amount of synchro summoning within a deck, I will definitely be all over it. And believe it or not, Rescue-ACE actually ends up being an archetype that is relatively conducive to getting off some amount of synchro summons. You might have noticed the Auroradon in the room. Yes, this version of the deck does indeed run Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon. A lot of people are not big fans of this card, as I have been very well reminded of in Master 1. So it was actually a bit of a challenge for me to play this deck in Master 1 and actually get the full combo off with Auroradon. Not because the combo is difficult to pull off, but I think a lot of you can kind of see where I'm going with this. In Master 1, it can often be difficult to play out a full turn 1 combo because the instant people see a card like Auroradon and it resolving, they're just going to concede. And funnily enough, I had people concede as soon as I successfully Piri Reis Map for a Hydrant, stuff like that. Which, to be fair, there's no penalty for it for Master 1. Of course, there's nothing wrong with doing it in that regard. It's really annoying when you're a content creator and you're like, oh, this game is great. I have the perfect setup. This is the optimal combo. I can really show what this deck does, and my opponent conceded. They just conceded after I resolved the Piri Reis Map. That's great. That's awesome. But you know what? We do have some games where we get to show some amount of comboing off. And moreover, we also will see some gameplay where we are playing through disruption, right? So we will get to see a little bit of each of that. But yeah, I had a couple of setups where I could do a full turn 1 combo, which is going through your Auroradon setup. Basically, in order to summon Auroradon, all you really need in this deck are any 3 monsters on the board, and at least one of them is a machine. Having one of them be a machine is actually really easy. Getting 3 monsters is not terribly difficult, but it does require you to have some somewhat specific setups, right? Usually involves opening a Fenrir alongside a Hydrant and or a map, or an Airlifter, or one of the field spells, any kind of combination of those 2 cards. You could also potentially have the Rescue in conjunction with another 2-card combo. We do kind of have the Pot of Prosperity to help find stuff, and the 1-for-1 to summon the Hydrant out from the deck, but of course these are both limited cards, so it's you're not going to be doing this Auroradon setup every single game, but at the same time, it's really not terribly difficult to pull off. You can also use Fire Engine and Fire Attacker as additional extenders, so you don't have to necessarily open the Fenrir, stuff like that. So, but the idea is if you have any 2 monsters on the field and at least one are a machine, right? You can link off the non-machine monsters, or just link 2 monsters leaving the machine remaining to summon the Barricadeborg Blocker. Barricadeborg in your machine, probably a Hydrant most of the time, will then link into the Auroradon. Auroradon summons the 3 tokens. You sack off Auroradon and one of the tokens to pull out the O-Lion from deck. From there, you can use O-Lion to sync one of the tokens in itself for the Accel Synchron. From there, use Accel Synchron to dump the Jet Synchron from the deck to the graveyard and lower its level down to 4. You can discard a card, bring back Jet Synchron. Now you can sync for 4 for Herald and then for 7 for Auroradon Dragster, giving you 2 negates. Now, that by itself is not that great, but a lot of the time what you can do is you can summon Turbulence sometimes after. That's the full setup, is to still have a live Turbulence in hand after this, and then special it, and then set 4, and then you have those negates plus the 4 set. But there's also a lot of the time where you're going to have to use Turbulence as one of your monsters to link climb up to Auroradon. But even if that's the case, that's still fine. You obviously just set 4 before you do the link climbing, right? Then you can go into the Herald and the Dawn Dragster, and then you might not have a Rescue-ACE monster on your field at the moment, but during your opponent's draw phase, you can rescue to bring back the Turbulence in defense mode, or the Hydrant if that's in your yard, to make all of your extra effects on your cards live. But basically, you just kind of use the rescue during the draw phase for one of your Rescue-ACE cards in the yard, and that will go ahead and make your plays live. So, yeah, even if you end up having to use the Turbulence to help link climb. Like I said, you can still end on a full combo, which is the Turbulence and the fort sets, plus again a couple of negates as well. We have some other negate options in the form of Borreload and Baron. Of course, if you're doing this kind of Auroradon line, it's not hard to make either of these monsters, but it's pretty rare, if not, I don't know about impossible, but I've yet to find a situation where I could go for both Borreload and Baron on the same turn one. It's again usually going to be Herald plus the Dawn Dragster here. I mean, other than that, we're a pretty typical Rescue-ACE build, which I will say this about Rescue-ACE. I feel like this deck is pretty severely underplayed. This is definitely an upper rogue deck right now, but the reason that people aren't playing it is simply because it doesn't have its newest support out yet. Or its latest support, I should say, right? Which I guess makes sense, right? People want to wait until the deck's full power, and it'll actually be a tiered meta threat before they use it, but I think that there are probably too many people waiting. I'm not saying that this is like a sleeper tier 1 deck that nobody's playing right now, but this deck is upper rogue power level, but sees literally 0 play on ladder. Like, nobody plays Rescue-ACE ever because, again, we're all just waiting for Emergency and whatever the other one is. I can't remember. That makes the deck really good. But anyway, yeah. I think that's pretty much everything I have to say in that regard, because again, a lot of the other stuff, like even if you look in the main deck, right, the only cards that are really exclusive to the Synchro line here are exactly the Jet Synchron and O-Line. You could literally cut those two and put in like 2 triple attacks or like another fire attacker and another fire engine, more Rescue-ACE cards, the reinforced trap card, maybe another rescue, whatever combination you wanted to, and swap these out for like random link monsters you can go into and maybe a few rank 4s. But yeah, I mean, that would pretty much be it. That would pretty much be all the changes you would need to make. So this variant of this deck is not very, like, you could very organically and easily just take out literally the tuners and synchro monsters and nothing else, and you still have a fully functional Rescue-ACE deck. So let's go ahead and break this list down card by card, and then we'll look at those games here. So we're on 1 Jet Synchron, 3 Rescue-ACE Hydrant, 3 Maxx, 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Lion. We got 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 Rescue-ACE Impulse, 3 Rescue-ACE Airlifter, 1 Rescue-ACE Fire Attacker, 2 Kashtira Fenrir, 1 Rescue-ACE Fire Engine, 2 Rescue-ACE Turbulence, 1 1-for-1, 1 Pot of Prosperity, 3 Piri Reis Map, 2 Rescue-ACE HQ, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator. We got 1 Rescue, 2 Alert, 3 Infinite Impermanence, 1 Contain, and then 1 Extinguish. That's going to go ahead and do it for the main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 Herald of the Arclight, 1 Accel Synchron, 1 FA Dawn Dragster, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 Baronne de Fleur, 1 Linkuriboh, 1 Relinquished Anima, 1 Knightmare Phoenix, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Barricadeborg Blocker, 1 Knightmare Unicorn, 1 Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon, 1 Apollusa Bow of the Goddess, 1 Accesscode Talker, and then 1 Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. There is our list. Let's go ahead and see some games now. Okay, so our first opponent is going to be on Madolche, and I want to start with this game because, again, we don't actually get a game where we do the full turn 1 combo, because when we had those setups, everybody just conceded before you get to finish it, but this will at least show the setup for it, right? And then I can also show you how to play through some disruption as well. So, gonna start with the Piri Reis Map. Got to do that at the start of main phase 1 for the Hydrant. We get to special the Fenrir after that, adding another copy of itself. Definitely want to do that before a Prosperity, so we don't end up seeing the second Fenrir in there. If you're wondering what 6 I banish for Prosperity, I tend to banish IP and then pretty much all of the Link 2 or higher in general, aside from, of course, Barricadeborg and Auroradon, because we're going into those. I tend to find that you end up needing those the least. We're going to go into most, if not all, of the Synchros. You could also get rid of Borreload and or Baron, potentially, if you wanted to keep some out of the links here, which might actually not be that bad of an idea, but we reveal Maxx, Hydrant, Maxx, Alert, Hydrant, and Airlifter. There's Airlifter. We very much were looking for Airlifter here. Like, the Hydrant, we obviously already have that. The Alert we have, and, like, normal summoning Hydrant and then activating Alert is, like, fine, but it's not going to be, like, a full combo setup, right? It would still be a Turbulence setup, but With Airlifter, we get the full combo, because we get to normal Airlifter, add the field spell, activate the field spell, giving us another normal summon for a Rescue-ACE monster, normal Hydrant, and then add the Turbulence. We even get to we even get to throw in the alert here for the fire engine. So now I'm going to link off the Fenrir for the Barricadeborg Blocker alongside the Airlifter. Now Barricadeborg Blocker and the Hydrant can go for the Mecha Phantom Beast Auroradon. Now Auroradon's going to activate, which will grant us the 3 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. So I'm going to pause here, because our opponent is going to have a Disrupt, and you probably figure out which one it is. But normally what you would do from here, right, is, like I said, activate Auroradon, tribute itself, and one of your tokens, summon O-Lion from deck. O-Lion is a level 2 tuner, sync that with one of your 2 remaining level 3 tokens for the Accel Synchron. Accel Synchron, effect activate, send Jet Synchron, level 1 tuner from deck to the graveyard, and then Accel Synchron will drop down to a level 4 tuner. Discard one of the cards, in this case our extra Fenrir for the Jet Synchron. Oh, and then of course the O-Lion generated another token and replaced the one it synced with. So by that point, you have level 1 tuner Jet Synchron, level 4 tuner Accel Synchron, and then the 2 level 3 non-tuner tokens. So, as I mentioned before, from there you sync into the Herald of the Arclight and the FA Dawn Dragster. Then we can Special Turbulence, Special Fire Engine, set 4, and pass. Here our opponent is going to have a Nibiru, so that's obviously going to get rid of Auroradon and the tokens, but it's going to ultimately, in the context of our end combo line, only get rid of the Herald and the Dawn Dragster. We can still Turbulence, we can still Fire Engine, and we can still Turbulence, more importantly, to set 4. So between the set 4, the Fire Engine, and the Ash Blossom, I'm really not feeling too pressured by my opponent's Nibiru here. There's a lot of decks where Nibiru would be devastating. This situation was not one of them. Opponent's going to start off with the Vernuself of the Flourishing Hills, pitching another Vernuself. Definitely want to use the Ash Blossom here. Between the use of the Vernuselfs and honestly looking at my opponent's field, I pretty much guessed they were on Madolche, but I really did extrapolate more from the use of the Vernuselfs, because there's really not that many decks that are utilizing them right now. So the Vernuselfs are also an inherent -1 when you go to use them, in that they not only cost themselves, but also another card from hand. So Ash Blossom very advantageous here, able to trade my 1 Ash Blossom for 2 of my opponent's Vernuselfs there. Madolche ticket coming down. Here is the Quacky Ducky, sending itself alongside the Messengelato to get back the Angeli. I will go ahead and use the Fire Extinguisher here that will allow me to add the Hydrant. Now when Angeli is summoned, I'm going to use the Extinguish. This will not only of course destroy the Angeli, but if somehow my opponent even were able to revive it again later in the turn, now that I have the Hydra on the field, the Extinguish will make it so they cannot use Angeli's effect for the rest of this turn. Put us moving to battle. They're going to battle over the token with Nib and then concede. You might be wondering why they didn't use Messengelato to battle over Hydrant. That is because of Hydrant's effect, which protects itself while you control other Rescue-ACE monsters on the field. Your opponent's got to battle those first. They did actually try to declare an attack with Messengelato, like the card lifted up, but then it went right back down because, you know, they can't destroy anything else by battle, and again, they are not able to declare an attack against Hydrant while I have other Rescue-ACE monsters in play. So there you go, that was the setup for the full combo. We did get Nibiru'd, but oh no. I say oh no very sarcastically there because we still ended on the vast majority of our combos. So that not only at least shows the full setup, what it could potentially look like, but also shows how even if it gets interrupted, you can still play through it. So there is that duel. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one here. Okay, so I wanted to follow up by showing a duel where we do actually get to see some amount of synchro summoning. So this game against Dragon Link will end up providing just that. We're going to take the first turn, and looking at our hand, it's actually really good here. Well, I don't know if it's like really, really good. The thing that's actually awkward about this hand is actually a little bit awkward, and I'll tell you why. We have the ability to Auroradon. The problem with this hand is that we don't have Hydrant or Turbulence, which means we can Auroradon and do the synchro summons, but that's it. So I don't know. It probably wasn't right of me. Oh, well, you know what? Okay, actually, I do remember why I ended up doing this. Because I am actually going to go for the synchros here. I guess I more went for like a gamble play. This was a huge gamble play. Because what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to end up being able to draw 1 card off of Rescue-ACE HQ. And I'm kind of hoping at this rate it's going to have to be exactly Turbulence, but I don't know. Like I said, I wanted to Synchro summon. People weren't letting me do it. People were just conceding before I had the opportunity to do it. So I was like, I'm going to Synchro summon, damn it. I don't even care if it's optimal. It probably wasn't. I probably should have just stayed on like Airlifter, Fire Attacker, and Fire Engine, but we're going to do it all the same here. And like I said, we will get to, if nothing else, draw a card off the HQ here. But yep, here is the Herald of the Arclight. Here's the Rescue-ACE HQ effect, putting the 4 Rescue-ACE cards I used back and letting me draw an Imperm, which is actually not a terrible draw by any means, but definitely not a Turbulence. Here is the Dawn Dragster. Gonna throw down the Imperm and then pass over to the opponent, who's gonna try to Druid Swarm during the end phase. Unfortunately, I have to Herald here because not only just Druid Swarm's effect, but the fact that I can just battle over either of these monsters, right? We gotta get rid of it now. Hoping this Imperm plus Spell Trap Negate is going to be enough. Opponent's going to start with the Bestial Lubellion. Bestial Lubellion is going to go ahead and grab the Saronir there. Opponent's going to follow up with a Chaos Space pitching Saronir. I am going to use the Dawn Dragster here, just because it would be so easy for my opponent to have plays, and like, yeah, they might have another follow-up. That might have been a bait, but I think I needed to take it here. It was a bait. They actually have the grass, so that's obviously not good for me at all. They get a Starliege Saphrit here for the Bestial Lubellion, but they've already used that this turn, so I'm not too concerned. That actually ends up being all they can do, so I'm looking for a really good top deck here. Unfortunately, I don't find it. The call by is like okay. I can still at least stop some amount of plays with that, but I just need to rip Piri Reis Map, Hydrant, Turbulence. Not Turbulence anymore, actually. I don't have any Rescue-ACE cards in the yard, but really a Piri Reis Map or Hydrant, which is 6 cards, you know. That's actually not terrible. In a 34 card deck, that's like about somewhere in the neighborhood between 1 and 5, 1 and 6, so well, a little over 20%, something like that. I'm awful at math, especially quick math, so I couldn't tell you exactly, but I am going to use the Dawn Dragster here. It looks kind of weird to use that on the Chaos Space Negate, but I know my opponent didn't have follow-up plays last turn with how few cards they had, and I'm guessing that's going to be the same here. I don't want them to just rip something live off the top of their deck, right? So, but unfortunately, I'm not really able to do the same. I have to just switch Dawn Dragster to defense mode here and pass while having this Maxi up. And unfortunately, this build does not play Nibiru, so even if I manage to resolve the Maxi, you know, I'm not going to ultimately have a Nibiru to be able to draw into. I will still use the Maxi here. It's not like I'm not going to use it. And of course, we get to negate the call by with the Dawn Dragster. Okay, Magnum Hut's about to drop. We will get a draw for it, though. And it's another Maxi, of course. I elected not to use the Imperm here because of the Dragon Roar. Basically, yeah, I knew they were going to summon the Thunder Dragon Dark, and I wanted to potentially save Imperm for Colossus if I thought they weren't going to go for a lot of summons. Okay, so here I'm actually going to make a pretty huge misplay, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. So here my opponent's going to use the Thunder Dragon Dark. This isn't a misplay. This Ash Blossom is fine, actually, because it stops them from adding the Hawk and keeps the Colossus from coming down. Where the misplay was... Oh, hang on. Chaos Space has to resolve first. It was here. My opponent goes to activate Dark the Dark Charm or Gloomy. They target Barricadeborg Blocker. I'm like, alright, they can get that back and make what? Knightmare Unicorn or Accesscode? Either would be fine. I can use the Imperm on the Accesscode once it resolves, and same with the Knightmare Unicorn. I'm even thinking to myself, Knightmare Unicorn would even be totally fine, because then they would even have to commit a discard. So I'm like, yeah, Dark resolves. I actually don't know if this was a misplay. It ended up being the wrong play, but given my reasoning, I don't know if it was actually a misplay. Like, I feel like you can make an argument. What ends up happening is, yeah, as you can see, they discarded Auroradon Dragon, which is a huge problem, because now they can add Rocket Tracer, and they still have a normal summon, which means now they have plays. So, it did need to be exactly the one, maybe two of, because it's a 60-card deck, but the exactly one of Auroradon Dragon, in order for the Imperm to be better on Dark than Knightmare Unicorn there, I think. So I don't know if I necessarily misplayed by doing that there, but it did ultimately end up being the wrong play. I don't know. I guess the reason that I didn't want to use the Imperm there is because like I was scared if I had Impermed the Dark, they would have like one more live card in hand, but I don't know. If I was operating earlier on the assumption they didn't have any live cards, I could have done so then as well. Like, yeah, I don't know. I probably should have just used the Imperm there. I think that was ultimately a misplay. I don't think it was a terrible play, but it did... I mean, it ended up being the wrong play, but I don't think it was like the worst play in the world or anything. But it will ultimately cost me the duel. Alright, we still have a couple more games to see, though. Also, of course, like I said, want to show that game off. Not only because it was close, but also because we actually Synchro summoned in this one. Wonder of wonders. So... got a couple more to see, though. Let's go into the next duel here. Okay, for this game, we're going to be up against Twin Sprite, which is pretty cool. I didn't really specify this in the tier list video. Maybe I did. I don't remember, actually. But I do think Twin Sprite is the best Sprite variant right now. We can take the first move, and this hand looks pretty good to me. Gonna start off with the Kashtira Fenrir and activating that, because, again, I don't want to see the other Fenrir in this Prosperity. And Prosperity, once again, I'm just going to banish a bunch of, like, big Link monsters, so. We reveal Hydrant, Fire Engine, Maxx, O-Line, Airlifter, and Turbulence. I'm going to go ahead and grab the Hydrant here. Normal summon that. And my opponent has an effect failure, but thankfully it actually doesn't matter here. Because I already have the Alert and Turbulence in hand, so. We get to go ahead and activate our Alert. Opponent's going to Ash Blossom. Actually still doesn't matter because I have the Turbulence in hand. And to be fair too, it could have been other cards too, not exactly having Turbulence and Alert, right? Like I could have had the other quick play spell that summons one from the graveyard. I could have had Fire Engine or Attacker for an extra body here. I even could have had potentially Airlifter. Well, to play around the both Valor and Ash Blossom, I would have had to have had more things, but I guess what I'm getting at here is, like, it wasn't this exact hand that allowed me to necessarily play around my opponent's stuff there. Anyway, I actually sent Anima, Relinquished Anima, instead of IP this time, so I'll link summon into that instead of one of our Link ones. Here's Turbulence setting 4 cards. There is the Extinguish, the Alert, the Rescue, and of course, the Contain. Alright, so not like an Auroradon full combo, but we have IP, we have Turbulence, we have Ash Blossom. We're going to extinguish the normal summon red, and that's going to be enough for my opponent to concede. As a lot of people who have played against Sprite know, if you can just manage to pop or get rid of their first normal summoned level 2 monster right away, a lot of the time it can actually be very difficult for Sprite to come back after that, because Sprites, of course, need a level 2 monster on the field to be able to special summon any amount of the Sprite monsters from hand. So, by destroying the Sprite red right after it's normal summoned, I basically force my opponent to have exactly starter or not be able to make plays. And as you can see here, they weren't able to make plays, which caused them to concede. Alright, we have one more game to show off. Let's go ahead and go straight into that. Okay, so our final game for this video is going to be against Monarchs. I'm sure I've played against Monarchs at some point. I was trying to think if I had. I'm sure I have at some point. It's actually a 60-card domain Monarch. The things you run into... I mean, I say, oh, the things you run into in Master 1 ladder, but I mean, am I not myself on Rescue-ACE Synchro? So... no life plays here, but let's go into Special Fenrir and then activate the Tenacity. I'll go ahead and use the Ash Blossom on that. No life plays, but I do have Impermanent Called By. I'm going to pretty much have to hope those are enough on their own. Opponent's going to smack me with Fenrir, move to main phase 2, and then pass. It seems that they probably have the other Fenrir in hand if they aren't adding it here. And we managed to peel Hydrant off the top of our deck. I'm going to start with an Imperm on the Fenrir, but that was actually 100% necessary. What I could have just done instead is normal summon Hydrant and then flip up Extinguish. And then I could have destroyed the Fenrir and hung on to my Imperm. So that was a little bit of a misplay on my part. I just wasn't thinking about it. But It's not that big of a deal. I already have Turbulence, so I'm just going to add the fire engine. Now we'll use Extinguish on the Fenrir. I still want to do that even though I negated it. That way I can get 2 different Rescue-ACE cards in my graveyard. Don't forget that these spell and trap cards are always treated as a Rescue-ACE card, which means they can be banished for a Turbulence in order to summon it. So, opponent is going to Maxi, but thankfully we have the Called By here. So, none of that. Alright. Now that the Earth Insect has been taken care of, let's go ahead and special summon that Turbulence, except we would if our opponent didn't concede. So, as you can see, yet another example of early conceding in Master 1. I don't know, it's like, you know, I've had a lot of people suggest, and I've actually done this a couple of times now, like, oh, if you know, if you're gonna have issues getting games in Master 1, you should, like, have viewers or do viewer duels to help you get games. And again, we've done that a couple of times recently, but I knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen if I did it, and it actually happened the first deck profile where I showed games with viewers. Immediately, I got a comment with somebody accusing one of my opponents for throwing because they made a slightly unoptimal play to give me content. So it's like, you can never win on YouTube. It's like, whatever, it's all good. But yeah, thanks for going ahead, geez. You can tell it's the end of the video because I'm delirious and I'm just letting words fall out of my mouth right now. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Means a lot. Super appreciate it. Let us move now to our outro. Alright everybody, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the very end. That means a whole lot to me, and it's also a fantastic way to support the channel. And if you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways besides YouTube, there are plenty of ways to do that. If you check out the description below, you'll find a bunch of links down there. One of them goes to my Patreon. You're actually seeing the names of everyone subscribed to the Patreon on the screen right now. So if you're interested in getting your name in the credits here at the end, if you want to see more daily Master Duel content, or if you're interested in one-on-one private coaching sessions, I offer all of that on Patreon. I also stream live on Twitch. Feel free to go ahead and click that link and follow and or subscribe there. I also have the Discord community, if you want to follow that link, where hundreds of duelists have already signed up. Free to join, and you can just come hang out, talk about the game, and chill in general. Final link that's going to be in the description is my Twitter. You can follow that if you want some more notifications of what's happening with the channel. So, all in all, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day.